This is another episode of Tabletop Chat. Now, I already talked about the codexes in the rulebook and some of the basic things you need if you wanted to start up your own Warhammer army. But a few of my friends were still a little bit unsure on what they needed, and particularly what kind of models do they need, because there's a lot of different kind of models out there. So this video is just to help you out a little bit on how to get started with your model collection. But before that, I just want to make something clear about the codexes that I was talking about in the last video. You don't need to buy all of the codexes. You just really need to get the one codex you need for your army. I kind of collect the codexes because I like reading the fluff. And I do kind of like knowing everything about all the armies. But you only really need to get the one codex for your army. So now that we cleared that up, I'd just like to talk real quick about what you need for your army, depending on what kind of army you want. Now, if you already read the rulebook, or if you haven't gotten the rulebook yet, each kind of match you play in tabletop will have what's called deployment choices. And you're restricted to how many different types of deployments you could get. What that means is, you have different types of troops. You have your HQ units, which are your leader units. You got your troop units, which are your basic infantry. You have your fast attack, which are, like it says, fast units, kind of like motorcycle characters against jump packs. You get your heavy support, which usually involves like heavy weapons and vehicles. And then you got your elites, which are pretty much stronger versions of the troops. And you're restricted to how many of each you get. But to try to keep this as simple as possible, the only things you really need, an HQ unit and 2 troop choices. And that's pretty much a requirement for most of the scenarios you'll be playing. And once you get your codex, in the back few pages, which is pretty much where all the information you really need to know about your entire army, which involves your troop choices, type of rules they play, and so forth. Really, it's kind of like that much, and the rest, it's a lot of fluff. It goes into a little bit deeper description, but this is really what you need. And it goes over all the different type of units you have. And the HQ units, the leader units, they have your basic HQ units. As an example, for the Chaos Space Marines, you have your Sorcerer, you have a Warsmith, Chaos Lord. For the Space Marines, you have a Chapter Master, a Librarian. For the Orcs, you get your Warlord, you get your Warpheads, and so on and so forth. And not only that, there's special named characters, like special HQ units, that if you ever read books or novels or know much about the history on your army, then you know about these characters, and they have their own special rules, and they're really powerful units. And I would only really recommend them for the really high point games. But aside from that, it tells you all the kind of upgrades you can get for the units. So when you get your codex for whatever army you want to play with, look through it, see what kind of HQ unit really appeals to you. And then that way you could already start planning on what kind of army you're going to build after that. And then, of course, after the HQ units, we get the troops, your basic units. And after you've decided on what kind of HQ choice you want and what kind of troop choices you want, you can start building the rest of your forces around that. But I guess the next question would be, where or how would you start building up these forces? One of the easiest ways is to just get a battle force set. Each army, with the exceptions of the Sisters of Battle, has their own battle force set, which has enough models so you can start up your own army with 1 HQ unit and at least 2 troop choices. And they usually add a transport to it. Now, the only problem I can see with starting with a battle force set is that it does give you plenty of pieces so you could customize your own army, and you get plenty of bits so you could customize like the kind of weapons and equipment they look like they're wearing. But it doesn't give you enough pieces to really build any type of HQ unit. Meaning, I use the Space Marines again as an example. If you get their basic battle force set, you'll mainly be able to build a lot of guys that look like this. Their armor looks will vary a little bit, and they'll have different types of weapons. But if you wanted to build an HQ unit that would, let's say, wears Terminator armor, you're not going to get that in the battle force. Or even if you want one that rides a bike, you're going to have to get that piece separate from somewhere else. Because I know a lot of the problems that my friends have with the game is they don't want to spend money on models that they're not going to use. or they're not going to be happy with, or they're going to feel like they're just chained to use these models because they bought the Battle Force set and they couldn't create the army that they really wanted to. So again, that's why I recommend look through the codex and do a little bit of research on what you really want. You can go on the Game Workshop's website and they'll sell all the different models separately. They'll even sell like extra bits separately so you can customize your squads a bit. But what I usually end up doing is I like to go to eBay. You get a lot of stuff on eBay. There's a ton of sellers for Warhammer stuff on eBay for any kind of army. And most of my armies is pretty much built from eBay stuff. And if you really want to customize your army, what I like to do is I take a modeling knife and actually start cutting up some pieces from my Warhammer sets, and I start creating my own special units. Or you could use the extra bits and pieces you get from whatever other models you bought, because you always end up with a few extra pieces. And you can use those to custom make your other models. Now, as a quick example for the Tau, this is one of the units, I forget the name off the top of my head, but they're pretty much like a sniper rifle unit who controls his own like sniper drones. I wanted 2 of these squads, but I was only able to afford one of these guys. So I custom made my other one. I had an extra base. The sizes of the bases are important when you make your models. And I pretty much used some extra bits and pieces to glue on that base to make it look like he's kind of has like a little remote control for the drones. And I had a few extra drone pieces and I was able to glue those together to make it sort of look like sniper drones. It did turn out a bit cheaper for me to do it that way. And they look close enough. A lot of people that play the game, that at least the people I played with, actually like looking at custom-made conversion pieces. Even if they don't look perfectly or exactly like the official ones, people like watching these conversions. And I've never really had problems using them in the game. You can also use the play as rule. We have a model that you just completely change the type of it. Or the kind of weapons it has, just because you didn't have enough pieces. Like this guy has a plasma gun. But let's say in my army, I didn't want him to have a plasma gun, and for this one particular match, I want him to have a flamethrower. I'll just say he's using a flamethrower instead. Most players are okay with that. Just as long as you, and I know somebody that did this, use something like a Coke can in place of a Carnifex. No, put some work into your models. And here's something I'm also kind of proud of. I actually got a piece from the commander from the Assault on Black Reach piece, and I used some extra bits to give him a little hammer. He has like that's a space wolf head, and so he looks kind of like Santa Claus with a hammer and a cape. So if you end up getting a Battle Force box set, or if you end up getting like other random pieces that you bought off of eBay or for Game Workshops, try to experiment a little bit to try to make the army that you want. Just make sure you do your research so you don't feel like you're just wasting money on models you're not going to use. Now again, if you're not very picky on what kind of models you want, you just want an army to start off with, then just go ahead and get the Battle Force. Or if you have another friend and you're both trying to get into the game, try getting the new starter set, the Dark Vengeance starter set. I actually did an unboxing video a few months ago. That way, in that starter set, it actually has 2 armies, so you can each take your own army. But those pieces are a little bit tougher to customize because those are really for beginners and they have snap-on pieces instead of pieces that you have to glue together. But I will have to admit, some of those models look way better than you would get in the Battle Force set. So I hope that cleared up some things. I know I kind of rushed by this, but I want to try to keep this as simple as possible, just to try to give you the idea on what you need to do to get into it. And you can figure out the rest after that. But if you do have questions, feel free to leave a comment or send me an email, and I'll try my best to answer it. Till then, I'll see you next time.